day332 of reading. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. We're currently on page 680. Mouse was twitching as though she was about to cry. Come along, hospital wing. No, said Dumbledore sharply. Dumbledore, he ought to. Look at him. He's been through enough today. He will stay, Minerva, because he needs to understand, said Dumbledore curtly. Understanding is the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be recovery. He needs to know who has put them through the ordeal he has suffered tonight and why. Moody, Harry said. He was still in a state of complete disbelief. How can it have been Moody? This is not Alastor Moody, said Dumbledore quietly. You have never known Alastor Moody. The real Moody would not have removed you from my sight after what happened tonight. The moment he took you, I knew, and I followed. Dumbledore bent down over Moody's limp form and put a hand inside his robes. He pulled out Moody's hip flask and a set of keys on a ring. Then he turned to Professors McGonagall and Snape. Severus, please fetch me the strongest truth potion you possess. Then go down to the kitchen and bring up the house elf called Winky. Minerva, kindly go down to Hagrid's house, or you will find a large black dog sitting in a pumpkin patch. Take the dog up to my office. Tell him I will be with him shortly, then come back here. If either Snape or McGonagall found these instructions peculiar, they hid their confusion. Both turned at once and left the office. Dumbledore walked over to the trunk with 7 locks, fitted the first key into the lock, and opened it. It contained a mass of spellbooks. Dumbledore closed the trunk, placed the second key in the second lock, and opened the trunk again. The spellbooks had vanished. This time it contained an assortment of broken sneakoscopes, some parchment and quills, and what looked like a silvery invisibility cloak. Harry watched, astounded, as Dumbledore placed the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th keys into their respective locks, reopening the trunk each time and revealing different contents each time. Then he placed the 7th key into the lock, threw open the lid, and Harry let out a cry of amazement. He was looking down into a kind of pit, an underground room, and lying on the floor some 10 feet below, apparently fast asleep, thin and starved in appearance, was a real Mad-Eye Moody. His wooden leg was gone. The socket that should have held the magical eye looked empty beneath its lid, and chunks of his grizzled hair were missing. Harry stared, thunderstruck between the sleeping Moody in the trunk and the unconscious Moody lying on the floor of the office. Dumbledore climbed into the trunk, lowered himself, and fell lightly onto the floor beside the sleeping Moody. He bent over him, stunned, controlled by the imperious curse. Very weak, he said. Of course they would have needed to keep him alive. Harry, throw down the impostor's cloak. He's freezing. Madame Pomfrey will need to see him, but he seems in no immediate danger. Harry did as he was told. Dumbledore covered Moody in the cloak, tucked it around him, and clambered out of the trunk again. Then he picked up the hip flask that stood upon the desk, unscrewed it, and turned it over. A thick, gluttonous liquid splattered onto the office floor. Polyjuice potion, Harry, said Dumbledore. You see the simplicity of it, and the brilliance, for Moody never does drink except from his hip flask. He's well known for it. The impostor needed, of course, to keep the real Moody close by, so that he could continue making the potion. You see his hair? Dumbledore looked down on the Moody in the trunk. The impostor has been cutting it off all year. See where it is uneven? But I think in the excitement of tonight, our fake Moody might have forgotten to take it as frequently as he should have done. On the hour. Every hour. We shall see. Dumbledore pulled out the chair at the desk and sat down upon it, his eyes fixed upon the unconscious Moody on the floor. Harry stared at him too. Minutes passed in silence. Then, before Harry's very eyes, the face of the man on the floor began to change. The scars were disappearing. The skin was becoming smooth. The mangled nose became whole and started to shrink. The long mane of grizzled gray hair was withdrawing into the scalp and turning the color of straw. Suddenly, with a loud clunk, the wooden leg fell away as a normal leg grew in its place. Next moment, the magical eyeball had popped out of the man's face as a real eye replaced it. It rolled away across the floor and continued to swivel in every direction. Harry saw a man lying before him, pale skin, slightly freckled, with a mop of fair hair. Harry knew who he was. He had seen him in Dumbledore's Pensieve, had watched him being led away from the court by Dementors, trying to convince Mr. Crutch that he was innocent. But he was lined around the eyes now and looked much older. There were hurried footsteps outside in the corridor. Snape had returned with Winky at his heels. Professor McGonagall was right behind them. "Crouch!" Snape said, stopping dead in the doorway. "Barty, crouch!" "Good heavens!" said Professor McGonagall, stopping dead and staring down at the man on the floor. Filthy, disheveled, Winky peered around Snape's leg. Her mouth opened wide and she let out a piercing shriek. "Master Barty! Master Barty! What is you doing here?" She flung himself forward onto the young master's chest. "You was killed him! You was killed him! You was killed master's son!" "He is simply stunned, Winky," said Dumbledore. "Step aside, please. Severus, you have the potion?" Snape handed Dumbledore a small glass bottle of completely clear liquid, the Veritaserum with which he had threatened Harry in class. Dumbledore got up, bent over the man on the floor, and pulled him into a sitting position against the wall beneath the faux glass in which the reflections of Dumbledore, Snape, and McGonagall were still glaring down upon them all. Winky remained on her knees, trembling, her hands over her face. Dumbledore forced the man's mouth open and poured 3 drops inside it. Then he pointed his wand at the man's chest and said, "Enervate." Crouch's son opened his eyes. His face was slack, his gaze unfocused. Dumbledore knelt before him, so that their faces were level. "Can you hear me?" Dumbledore asked quietly. The man's eyelids flickered. "Yes," he muttered. "I would like you to tell us," said Dumbledore softly, "how you came to be here. How did you escape Azkaban?" Crouch took a deep, shuddering breath, then began to speak in a flat, expressionless voice. "My mother saved me. She knew she was dying. She persuaded my father to rescue me as a last favor to her. He loved her as he had never loved me. He agreed. They came to visit me. They gave me a draught of Polyjuice potion containing one of my mother's hair. She took a draught of Polyjuice potion containing one of my hairs. We took on each other's appearance." Winky was shaking her head, trembling. "Say no more, Master Barty. Say no more. You is getting your father into trouble." But Crouch took another deep breath and continued in the same flat voice. "Dementors are blind. They sense one healthy, one dying person entering Azkaban. They sense one healthy, one dying person leaving it. My father smuggled me out, disguised as my mother, in case any prisoners were watching through their doors. My mother died a short while afterward in Azkaban. She was careful to drink Polyjuice potion until the end. She was buried under my name and bearing my appearance. Everyone believed her to be me." The man's eyelids flickered. "And what did your father do with you when he had gotten you home?" said Dumbledore quietly. "Stage my mother's death. A quiet, private funeral. That grave is empty. The house elf nursed me back to health. Then I had to be concealed. I had to be controlled. My father had to use a number. Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to read page 685. Bookmark closed. Peace out.